talking about mental health, we have a professor here in the studio with us who will be telling us how Nigerians can manage their mental health, especially facing the economic challenges and the economic realities, like we often like to make it look or sound really beautiful economic realities that Nigerians are currently facing. And do we address mental health issues enough in Nigeria? Do we have the checks? Have Nigerians come to recognize that getting mental health checks or evaluation does not mean you are insane? That's all we'll be talking about here this morning. And to do justice to this is Professor of Psychiatry, ABU Zaria. He's Professor Taiwo Shiekh. Thank you so much for being part of the program.
Thank you, Joy.
Professor Taiwo Lateef Shiekh, welcome to the program. My mental health needs analysis.
Thank you very much.
But let's talk about this, because when you look at mental health in Nigeria, the emphasis has always been on conventional health problems. People feel mental health is not really as important as other health issues or other health. Even in the health sector, you rarely find where mental health is addressed. There's still a stigmatization around it. There's still a hush-hushness around it. But let's start with the first mundane question. What is mental health?
Thank you. I think this is very fundamental. It's a foundation to really appreciate who we are, understanding what mental health is all about. Let me start by saying that we all have mental health. As long as you are alive, as long as you are up and about, you have mental health.
Okay.
You have a mental health that you need to promote, you need to preserve, and you need to prevent mental illness, mental health conditions.
Yeah.
So you have to engage in activities that will promote your mental health, that will preserve your mental health, that will protect you from suffering from mental health conditions. Now, what is this mental health? It has to do with the working of your brain. It has to do with your being able to hear, to see, to interpret things that happen around you in a very culturally appropriate manner.
Okay.
For you to be able to express your emotions in a way that is acceptable within your cultural, traditional settings and people around you. For you to be able to pursue the day-to-day things of life, like Joy was talking about realities of life. For you to be able to overcome such realities of life and put them where they are. So that is mental health. However, we have a definition for what we refer to as mental well-being,
Okay.
which is a higher level of mental health. So I've given you the basic definition of mental health.
Okay.
Then there is a higher level of mental health.
You want your mental health to be well.
Yes, and we refer to that as optimum mental well-being.
Okay.
And optimum mental well-being has to do with your capacity to be able to have your own aspirations and goals in life and be able to pursue it in a socioculturally acceptable manner, be able to withstand the day-to-day stresses of life and contribute positively to the development of your community. So if you are able to fulfill this criteria, then we say you are enjoying optimum mental well-being,
Okay.
which is a comfort zone.
Okay.
And with that, we say everything about you is okay, and that gives you total well-being, because mental health is total health. Every aspect of our life has emotions. Everything, your emotion is your mental health.
Okay.
So everything about your life and our lives has an emotional component.
Okay.
Today you are happy, tomorrow you are there. So you should be able to express these degrees of emotional changes
Yeah.
in a manner that is acceptable. You see,
You keep using that word, the manner that is acceptable, and
yes,
then so that's the yardstick to determine someone's mental health.
yes,
Now, there's certain things that are acceptable in certain places, and certain things that are not acceptable in certain cultures.
yes.
So let's assume now, for example, let me use a very mundane thing in Nigeria. There's the people that still believe that maybe you can kill somebody, do ritual to get money. It's not acceptable. Would you term things like that a mental disorder that doesn't go to the norm? Because what is conventional, maybe in Africa, maybe in Lagos, Igbo, Imo, certain cultures might differ based on their religious or cultural beliefs. So when you act out of that, does it mean that you have a mental imbalance?
Okay. Now, I'll take you there. Mental health, especially optimum mental well-being, is relative rather than absolute.
It's relative rather than absolute.
And
Okay.
that's why you hear me keep referring to acceptable within your trado, social, cultural settings. And it is true that certain things are acceptable in certain cultures and not acceptable in other cultures. You must be able to understand where you are and learn things that are acceptable within such that we consider norms within such socio-cultural settings. When you are not able to fulfill that, then you become a deviant. So being a deviant does not actually make you sick.
Okay. I get the point now.
So being a deviant within a community does not make you sick.
You have against the norm.
Yes, you have to fulfill certain other criteria that will now make it what in medical terms we say syndromic. That means you have signs and symptoms that you tie together that you can now pronounce an illness that has a name.
Okay.
You must have a name. So mental illness itself is nothing. When you hear people talking about mental illness, you said nothing. It's just a derogatory, stigmatizing language. Because every illness is categorized and has a name.
So until you see those symptoms, then you can be able to say, okay, he's schizophrenic, he has bipolar, he has this.
Yes.
So the question will be, what are those symptoms that people should be looking out for to know whether they have any mental illness?
Okay. I think it's important that our audience and you and Joy understand the spectrum of mental health.
Okay.
We are all in there. Sometimes we are happy, sometimes we are sad. So you could be in one extreme that is called optimum mental well-being. It's a comfort zone.
You said so, yes.
Everything is nice.
Yes.
You are gelling with everyone. Life is good.
That's joy.
You are meeting. You are meeting your aspirations. You are pursuing those aspirations within set cultural, acceptable cultural norms.
Yes.
Which means you want to be rich. Going to kidnap people to be rich does not give you optimum mental well-being. Right. Because that's not just what you told me now. Making rituals in taking another person's life to make ritual for you to be rich is not acceptable. So anybody engaged in that is not enjoying optimum mental well-being. It may not be sick.
You could just be a deviant.
Yes. Okay. Now, so you are in that comfort zone of optimum mental well-being. Then we have another extreme end where you may be under the burden of a mental health condition, what we call sickness, which will have a name. Either it's depression or schizophrenia or bipolar affective disorder. What it has a name. Yeah. So you may be in that extreme of having a mental health condition that will have a name. And then you also can be in between. In between, we call it distress.
That's me.
So when you are distressed, you are not sick, but you are out of the comfort zone of optimum mental well-being. And that is what we see a lot on our streets. And people misconstrue it to be sickness. A lot of us are within that in-between of experiencing distress. We're all buying fuel. We know how much it is. We know the value of the naira. We know the cost of Gari in the market. We have to pay school fees, and we have to think. We have to wake up early to meet up challenges.
Yeah.
That could place you on a distress zone. But one thing I want you to understand is that you see this spectrum of from that comfort zone to that sickness zone and the in-between, it's never static.
Okay.
It's a highly dynamic activity.
Okay.
And we are all, every human being is oscillating
Okay, so it's like a pendulum.
like a pendulum.
1 minute you're
swinging.
there, 1 minute you're there.
Every second, every minute, every hour of the day, you never remain fixated.
Right.
So you could be within that comfort zone in the morning, and by afternoon they tell you a friend died, and everything goes haywire.
That's true.
And before you know anything, you could be suffering from depressive illness. And you go to the clinic, you get treated, and you are back to your comfort zone. So we are all,
Going back and forth.
and then you now ask the question, why the stigma? When we all know that we are swinging. The person who is sick today will be well tomorrow. The one that is well today could be sick tomorrow. So then you understand what we mean by mental health. And then you'll understand what we mean by mental sickness.
Right.
An illness that affects your mentation, your ability to cope with day-to-day life, your ability to interpret what joy is telling me and respond appropriately. So then you will understand it fully. I don't know if I'm making sense to
A
you.
lot of sense. Well, I'm just waiting because I want to find out what symptoms do I know that I have that
Yes.
health.
So
because
before you go to symptoms, since
Now,
that's going to be,
yes.
I would like you to just tell us the treatment
Yes.
for this.
why are we treating when we don't know we have the symptom?
Because I want you, the prof, to tell us what you've been noticing. You've just told us that there's the optimal well-being, and all of us, we swing like a pendulum with our emotions.
Yeah.
Do we see that proper treatment that people should get in Nigeria? Are we beginning to appreciate the need to get checked, to seek a counselor or a therapist? Are we beginning to appreciate that in Nigeria?
Yes, it's getting better. At least we're in a studio now discussing mental health.
Exactly.
Which maybe some years ago, it would have been a very rare thing. Yesterday, I was at a workshop where journalists were discussing mental health, which a few years ago would be something you can't think about. So we are becoming more open, and people are becoming to understand what well-being and sickness is all about. And they are beginning to seek help, uptake services that are available to them. But you know, it's a transition. It's evolving. We are not where we ought to be, but I think people are becoming more aware of what mental health is all about.
Right, but do we have enough facilities to bring about this help?
Well, do we have enough of everything in Nigeria? Do we have enough of everything? That is worse for mental health care. In terms of the facility, in terms of capacity, in terms of the instruments to use for diagnosis, we still really have a gap, a huge gap between the problem on the ground and the access to care.
I still want to ask that question.
Care.
How
that
do
gap,
people
yes.
know when they need care? That's why
Yes,
I asked the symptoms,
yes.
because it's not something you've just elaborated on it. Mental
Yes.
health care is not something we're very conversant with.
Yeah.
You rarely see Nigerians go into the hospital to say, I need
Yes.
treatment for something,
Yes,
for
yes.
mental health. You'll
Yes.
see them go, and even the pharmacy, they want to treat malaria, they're treating typhoid.
Yes.
You rarely see Nigerians get up and say, I'm going to the hospital for treatment, and that's why I'm asking specifically about the symptoms.
Yes.
Now, to put it in a better context, it's because you and I know, or you've just analyzed it now, that people swing between the pendulum of their emotions
Yes.
based on what they're dealing with. And sometimes some people can remain on a very low level, which is called depression.
Yes.
And we've seen the rate of suicide increase in the country. It's still stigmatized, but it's real. It's happening. We see a lot of people that don't have coping mechanisms. And unfortunately, close friends, associates, families, we don't recognize the red flag. And that's what I'm saying. What are the signs, what are the symptoms can one look at and say, oh, wow, maybe I need to go to the hospital and check and get some kind of treatment for this. Or maybe my spouse, my friend, my colleague needs to, go. So as lay people, not a psychiatrist like you, what kind of symptoms should we be looking at, even in the workspace, to identify that, oh, this person might be on borderline depression, this person might be schizophrenic, this person might have bipolar. What are the things that we as individuals can look out for that should be the red flag that, can prompt treatment?
Thank you very much. I think this is a very important question. But let me just correct one thing. Sometimes the way we use the words also, like the term schizophrenic, is quite stigmatizing.
Yes.
But we can say someone suffering from schizophrenia.
Okay.
So schizophrenic is the person.
Someone is the ailment.
Is the illness.
Yes, someone suffering from.
Yes.
Someone
So,
suffering from bipolar. Someone suffering from
great.
depression.
You got it.
I got
you. So as we are talking, we'll also be,
Of course, we're
educating
learning.
ourselves on
Yes.
this. The symptoms, signs of disorders attributable to mental health conditions are quite varied, depending on the condition itself,
Okay.
the specific diagnosis,
Okay.
and depending on the severity, and most importantly, our awareness that we do deny, or sometimes we are so preoccupied with bodily, symptoms, so that we don't place emotional symptoms where they belong. So some emotional symptoms, we now convert it to bodily complaint. So you see people going in and out of the chemist and the clinic, complaining of pain in the joints, back pain, inability to sleep. That are clearly attributable to emotional problems. But they'll be receiving treatment for malaria, for typhoid, or malaria with typhoid, and so on. So what are these symptoms? We sleep every day, every night. We wake up, we feel strong. We eat because we have some appetite, or sometimes we just have to eat. We relate with our people at home, the husband and wife, children. We relate with people at work. We are able to have energy to go out to the market. These are our activities of daily living.
Yes.
And the moment you start noticing that you are being surcharged on these activities of daily living, then something is going on.
Okay.
You go to bed and sleep is not forthcoming. You have to wait and roll, go to toilet and come back, enter there and come back, sleep is not coming.
Okay.
Or when it comes, you wake up intermittently. You every 10, 15 minutes, you wake up, you go back, you wake up. In the morning, you feel unrefreshed. Something is wrong.
Mentally.
That is a red flag.
Okay.
Something is wrong. You need to talk to someone and go to the nearest center. Talk to any doctor. You don't have to say a psychiatrist.
Okay.
Talk to any health worker that I am having problems with my sleep. Or you are having sleep that is full of nightmares that makes you wake up frightened and things like that in the night, confused. Go to, that's about sleep. Then suddenly you cannot explain loss of appetite.
Okay.
Or loss of interest in the food. The appetite may be there, but you are not even interested in the food.
Okay.
Then something is going on. You really, not because somebody diagnosed you with other ailments, you really can't place it. And even if you had an other ailment, you have been treated, you had malaria, your fever is gone, and yet you just realize that you've lost interest in food, then something is going on. Or your pleasurable activities things that you derive pleasure from. You
No
go
longer
to,
interest you.
yes, you play tennis or you watch movies or you like company of friends, and then you notice that it doesn't really matter to you anymore. And maybe your friends are even complaining that we don't see you like as often. Something is going on. And when it's becoming more and more distressing, you start having unexplained bodily complaints.
So the emotional will manifest as physical pain.
Yes, as physical pains,
Okay.
unexplained. Pain in the neck, pain in the knee. You have to struggle to do the things that you usually do easily. You have to stretch, you yawn to be able to accomplish little tasks that, or you start having some unexplained fear, or as if you're on edge, as if something will happen, but nothing is happening. And you just can't place it. You can't understand it. And you may even start complaining to people that, look, I'm just afraid. I don't know what's going on. I don't know what's going on. And before you know anything, from time to time, your heart starts pounding.
Palpitating.
You start having tremors. You start sweating, as if the world is grinding to a halt. Something is going on. And as the severity is increasing, then other symptoms like you feel strange where you are, environments that are quite familiar becomes unfamiliar environments, or unfamiliar environments start looking like somewhere you have been to before. Something could be going on. Or you start hearing voices without seeing who is talking.
Right.
Or you start seeing things initially as if, then later you are even convinced that it's there.
And it's not there.
And nobody else could see. So that's the way it goes. That's depending, like I say, on the specific condition, depending on the severity of the problem, and depending on your own sense of awareness. You will be able to interpret these symptoms. Some may not have the capacity to interpret the symptoms. It is the person next to them that will notice those symptoms. And the person who has it does not know that this is going on. So it is the person next to him that has the responsibility to raise the red flag and encourage the person to see a health practitioner. You don't have to wait to see a psychiatrist. Psychiatrists are very few in this country. But every health worker has some knowledge of mental health conditions.
Wow.
So if you talk to them, they know this is something that they may not be able to handle it. They will send you to the right
They make
place.
referrals.
Absolutely, absolutely. But don't stay at home with it.
Right. Prof, that's been very enlightening for us. But are there temperaments that each person has that makes you more susceptible? And then the second question I'd like you to answer while doing that is the intake of recreational drugs. I don't know if to say it is on the rise now because our data, we don't know. However, would you say recreational drugs also drive young people especially towards this? And we're seeing the number of suicides among young people increase in the country as well.
Okay, three things.
Three things.
Three things. The first is
The temperament of humans.
yes, your predisposition.
Yes.
What are the things that could predispose you to come down with a mental health condition?
Yes.
I mean, please quote my choice of words. I'm not saying mental illness. I'm saying a mental health condition, like a febrile illness condition,
Right.
like a heart condition. I hope you understand.
Absolutely.
Yes. Then the second one is the use of recreational substances. And then the third one is the issue of suicide within our society today.
Exactly.
So, you know, we don't drop from the sky. I think it's only Odudua in the Yoruba.
Drop from the sky.
All other lesser mortals are products of their parents, you know. And being product of our parents, whatever we have, we got them from our parents.
So genes matter.
Yes, genes matter. Our heights, our weights, the way we talk, the way we walk. People will be telling you, she's walking like her auntie. Oh, her height is like her uncle. And so all these things, we get them from our parents, including our predisposition to certain conditions. Not only mental health conditions, including heart conditions, including sickle cell disease, including diabetes, hypertension, everything. So if you say, oh, because of mental health condition, what about diabetes? What about hypertension? Even some cancers, breast cancer, cervical cancer. So we have the imprints, but it doesn't mean that because you have that imprint, it will translate automatically to the illness, including mental health conditions. There must be some other conditions that will be fulfilled, especially environmental conditions. Our day-to-day lives, the level of stress that we face, the use of psychoactive substances like alcohol, cannabis, and whatnot.
Right.
So when you add these things together, those are the things that actually make the condition manifest. So it's you can have a father who has a particular mental health condition and you live all your life
Without it. Yeah.
Otherwise, the whole world will have gone. If it started from one and all his generations have it, then we will have all gone. So there are other environmental conditions that we need to be full. And that's why we say engage in mental health promoting activities, mental health preserving activities, and mental health conditions preventing activities. Because all of us, we have the imprint. Every human being has the imprint. It's now waiting for something that will now come and trigger it, depending on how much dose you come up with. So 2 people fail exam, one will go and develop depression, the other one will continue living his life. It's the same exam, it's the same trauma, but the capacity to take it may now vary depending on our constitutional factors and other things that we are doing in our own environment that could be protective. There are traditional things that could be protective. There are religious things that could be protective. There are social things we do that could be protective. So depending on all these things, it will now determine whether it will manifest or not. Then the issue of recreational drugs, substances. Of course, the use of substances is very long to biblical story of the use of alcohol and things like that, so it's part of human life. It's becoming a real challenge to us in this country today because those that are affected by psychoactive substance problems are the youths. People within the ages of 15 and 35, 80% of them, 80% of the conditions that are due to psychoactive substances are seen in them. And they represent the future of every society.
Absolutely.
So it's a huge problem that we need to address. And these substances that we refer to as recreational substances, some of them are recreational, others are illegitimate substances. They are controlled substances, substances that you are not supposed to handle, that have laws that will punish you for having it. So we don't call that recreational. It's not recreational. Recreational substances, to some extent, are a bit safer. People have been using them in parties. You buy a car, you celebrate, you build a house. They are here and there, but there are a few that will not be able to handle it well and go on to develop problem related to it. Most of the more severe forms of psychoactive substance use disorder that we have are due to these illegitimate substances.
Right.
And people get them all over the place, everywhere. So it's a huge problem. It's a threat to our collective survival as a country, and it's important that it contributes to so many other problems what we have. Crime. When you talk of crime, you will find psychoactive substance use inside.
Yes.
When you talk of banditry, you will find psychoactive substance inside.
Yes.
When you talk of terrorism, when you talk of rape, when you talk of...
so it's an enhancer for deviance.
So it's
right.
there. It's part and parcel of most of the problems we have in this country. And of course, it destroys the brain. And that becomes a burden to the society. And we have to use taxpayers' money to look after the person. He's not productive. He's leaning on others and things like that. So it's those things we call recreational substances. Only few of them are truly recreational. The vast majority that is wreaking this havoc are actually illegal substances. And it's very important that we understand that.
Absolutely.
And suicide. I think it's important we talk about suicide. Globally, suicide is a problem today. It's the 10th, in terms of ranking of cause of death globally today.
Yes.
And among youths, especially in low and medium income countries, in which Nigeria is one
of them, yes.
is the 4th leading cause of death among young people.
But those statistics are not there.
They're there.
They're there because you're a psychiatrist. But it's worrisome that you have Nigeria as the 4th, and you have youths. The youth, like you said, the leaders of the country. What should we be doing? It's worrisome. You understand? It's really worrisome.
It is.
Nobody would have thought the figures were this high.
That's why we are here today. And we have what we call, I had that yesterday, investigative journalism and another something about journalism. And so we expect you in the forefront in terms of educating people on what is good, what is not good, what is right, what is not right. So we expect journalists to also take interest in this. And Dick, I feel really excited yesterday when I received an invitation to come here. I'm ready to say it.
To create more awareness.
Yes. So the journalists have that. They are the gatekeepers in this country. They have that responsibility to dig into these statistics. They are available. Just Google and it will come down. WHO, this, you find it. And keep posting it to people on radio, in the newspaper, in the social media. Let people see it. Suicide is also misunderstood. We have a law in this country that criminalizes
it. I find it very ridiculous. Yeah, so if you fail in your suicide attempt, then you are arrested.
It's a law we inherited from our colonial masters. It's a law that is not compassionate. It's a very cruel law that needs to be expunged. Because the act of suicide is a sickness.
It's a cry for help, if you ask me.
Yes, it's a sickness. Anybody who tries to take his life by suicide is not well. Nobody wants to die. And I can assure you, please quote me anywhere, that anybody who tries to take his life by suicide actually does not want to die. Ask me again and I will explain.
Please explain.
That person actually in reality doesn't want to die. The person wants to escape from suffering. The person wants to escape from pain.
I agree with you on that.
That he's boxed into a corner. That he doesn't see any other escape route.
And then feels dead.
That is the only way I can free myself from this pain. At that point, something has clicked in the brain. Something has changed your sense of judgment. Something has shifted you away from reality. Your cognitions has become completely turned upside down to the extent that you cannot see any other way out of that particular pain, of that suffering. The only way that keeps coming to your mind is get out of it. this is the only way to get out of it. And if you are able to help that person and save that person, he will come tomorrow and thank you for saving his or her life. I have received messages like that of people that we have been able to help, and they did not go on to die, and they came back to start. Doctor, I'm very grateful. I cannot really say it. Words cannot explain my gratitude for saving my life. That person wanted to die. So people who are within the acts,
Or suicidal.
yes, they actually don't want to die. I'm telling you.
But Prof, we've also heard about people with suicidal thoughts that even when they are getting help, the thoughts just don't leave them. They've been held back at different times trying to attempt it.
Yes.
And even when they're on that watch, it's like they just want to...
Yes.
Why? Those suicidal thoughts just remain with them.
Those thoughts are the manifestation of the sickness.
Of the sickness.
It fixates you. It could be delusional.
I like that word, fixate. It becomes
Yes.
a fixation.
Yes. That is the manifestation of the illness that you cannot remove until you properly treat the person. So to punish someone who has tried to kill himself is an uncompassionate law.
True.
I
am
think they're
telling you.
repelling it.
Yes, they were repealing it.
So we need you. We need everybody in this country to support this, our campaign to decriminalize suicide in Nigeria.
I agree with you.
One, the law, the sections of the criminal code that actually criminalizes attempted suicide also makes anybody who tries to help also liable.
Who tries to help the person commit suicide or stop the person from committing?
Even stop by reporting or by not reporting. Like I find someone who tried to commit suicide, I manage him, I treat him, he becomes well.
Oh, you become liable.
Then I become liable.
Oh, wow. So you're not going to have people coming out to help. Yes, the psychiatrists.
So even family members who were there, who saw it and tried to do something to save their member of the family, the law catches up with them, they are liable. That is the extent of that law. So the law is a barrier to help seeking. It wouldn't allow people to come and seek help that I feel like killing myself. If you hear that, you quickly go to police. So who will open up?
Nobody.
So it's a huge barrier
Wow.
to health-seeking behavior. Secondly, it's a huge barrier to data. You are telling us now that you don't have the data. That I'm just giving you the data for the first time. Where will you get the data when people
don't report it? They
don't
hide
report
it.
They hide it. So we don't have data to use to be able to develop programs of prevention, programs of treatment, because you need data to plan.
Exactly.
Where there is no data, how can you plan? So that law is very restrictive in terms of help seeking, treatment seeking, in terms of developing policies, developing programs that will address suicide. And suicide is very high. And it's increasing every day.
It is increasing. I mean, when you face she calls it the reality, I call it the problems. She calls it the realities of Nigeria,
Economic
but
realities.
I call it the economic problems of Nigeria, you know, so there's so many times.
We leave that to the sociologists.
But I am a sociologist. I am a sociologist, so maybe that's why I'm saying it. I'm calling it for what it is, you understand? Because I read sociology in my first degree. Anyway, before we let you go, because we know you have a very busy schedule, but what would be your advice to Nigerians, especially when we're faced with the current realities? There are a lot of economic policies that are driving people up the wall. When you look at the cost of feeding, how many millions of Nigerians, and then one of your former chairman, I think head of Psychiatry, had predicted that over 80 million Nigerians are on the borderline of suicide. Not suicide, of mental illness, because
mental health conditions.
Mental health conditions. That's why you're the psychiatrist of mental health conditions. What would be your advice before we let you go to tell Nigerians what kind of coping mechanisms do we need to avoid, of course, we agree that life itself is not constant. It's a pendulum, so we would swing when it comes. But what kind of coping mechanisms will be your expert's advice to say, these are the things you can do to help you not get into that borderline of depression or, other mental sicknesses?
Mental health conditions.
Yes.
Yes. First, like I started with this
Well-being.
well-being.
Yeah.
Know what mental health is all about. Understand that everybody has it, and you need to engage in activities that will promote, preserve your mental health, that will prevent you from developing mental health conditions. What are these activities?
You read my mind. Just going to
Yes.
say, what
So
should
are these
we-
activities?
Yes. What are these activities?
As much as possible, sleep at the right time.
Okay. What's the right time for an adult?
You need about 7 hours sleep.
Okay.
At night,
Okay.
not day.
Okay.
Don't say I'm taking 3 hours at night, 4 hours during daytime.
Okay.
It doesn't help. It doesn't match.
Okay.
7 hours night sleep, because your brain recognizes daytime and nighttime.
Okay.
Use your daytime to pursue the activities of life. There are people who do night shifts,
Yes.
and they are compensated. You don't do night shift all the year round. You do night shift for a few days, and you go off duty for a few days.
Yes.
You wait until another month
Yes.
or 2 months before you engage in night shift again.
Yeah.
Any establishment that doesn't respect that, you should go and report,
Okay.
because that will trigger a mental health condition.
Okay.
Eat at the appropriate time. Food is religion in some cultures. Food is very essential.
Okay.
Never play with your food. We are not encouraging you to overeat, but eat at the appropriate time.
Okay.
All this, I'm fasting 40 days, 40 nights, and all over, it will push you.
Okay.
You can fast, but you fast with a break. So eat at the right time.
Okay.
Try as much as possible to gauge your ambitions.
To gauge your ambitions.
Don't go overboard.
Especially in
Or
the reality of the social media, where
Don't be
you see so much
unrealistic.
flamboyancy. And that's what's driving a lot of youths to...
So
yes.
set achievable goals for yourself,
Set
so that
achievable goals.
frustration will not set in.
Okay.
Because frustration is a trigger. It changes those. The basis of mental health conditions are certain neurotransmitters in the brain.
Yes.
So frustration changes their level,
Okay.
and that could also push you. So set achievable goals for yourself. Know your income, know what you can promise, know your energy, know how far you think you can run, know the size of your cup, know how much will fill it. So set achievable goals for yourself. Let go of situations that you cannot change. Let go of toxic relationships at work, at home. Surrender. Allow time for things to settle. You can reinitiate discussions.
Right.
Avoid
Confrontation.
confrontations. Husband and wife, father and child, co-workers at the place of work. So try and maintain a cordial relationship with people around. Because the moment you go into a toxic relationship, you will not sleep, you will not eat, your energy will, you do know that your brain uses more energy than any other part of your body?
We really don't know.
Yes. Your brain consumes more energy than any other part of your body. So if you subject yourself within a toxic relationship and your brain does not rest, tipping point is near. So you need to look at, I can't exhaust all,
Of course.
but these are things practical things that we can use. Avoid the use of psychoactive substances. Heavy dose of coffee itself is a problem.
It's in itself a problem, right?
Heavy dose of alcohol is a problem. Don't go into psychoactive substances, illicit drugs, because they are in over 90% of cases, you will have a mixture of all these things.
Okay.
These are the environmental factors
Yes.
that pushes you. And then have a kind of self-awareness. Every day, audit yourself. You must. If you can't, ask somebody to audit you. In fact, sometimes we laugh. We say, look, when you wake up in the morning, before you say, oh, I'm mentally well today, say hello to your neighbor and hear the way he will respond.
To you.
So if your neighbor sees something wrong with you, the way he will respond will be different.
Okay.
So audit yourself, check yourself. Am I sleeping well? Am I eating well? Do I have adequate energy that I used to? That will tell you that something is going wrong. Talk to your neighbor. Your neighbor doesn't mean the person in the next house, your husband, your brother, your sister, your co-worker at work. That's what I mean by your neighbor. Yeah. Talk to someone. And when you have anything that is bothering you, that keeps recurring in your mind, and you don't know where to keep it, talk to someone. Fine. Not the one that will go and broadcast to you.
I was going to also add that wouldn't you be careful about people that want to take your stories?
Well, from the beginning, you must know the kind of friends you have.
Absolutely. You just said avoid toxic people.
Right from the beginning.
Yes.
So you need to identify a confidant, even among your friends, among your neighbors, that you'll be able to talk to from time to time. These are my worries. What do I do about it? These are my worries. So these are the things that if we are able to, there is no perfection in life. We keep pursuing it, and it's difficult to get there. But it can keep us there. Like I said, we're all swinging between wholesome mental well-being, distress, and mental health conditions. We are all swinging per second, per minute. If there is one thing I want you to take away from here, that is what I want you to take away. That is a dynamic situation.
Yes.
It's never static. Yes. It changes with time, it changes with activities, it changes with relationships. We shouldn't now stigmatize those who are at the other pole, because they will recover and they will come to the other pole.
Thank you very much. We've been talking with Professor Taiwo Lateef Shiekh. He's the Professor of Psychiatry, ABU Zaria. Many thanks for making out the time. I know you have a busy schedule. You're rushing for your trip, but thank you for spending time with us in the studio this morning.
Yeah, most welcome, and thank you for the opportunity to be able to come here and participate in an awareness program.
We're going to invite you a lot more, I promise you.
I'm
Even
available.
if it's not physical, we'll always do
I am available as long as it's going to improve the well-being of my people.
That's the whole idea.
I'm always available.
Thank you so much once more,
It's so
Prof.
refreshing to have somebody like you ready to serve. Thank you for being part of the program.
Most welcome. Right. You're most welcome.